Protecting your rental property is one of your biggest priorities as a real estate investor, but if your tenants don't know what to expect of them, that could be really tough to do. It's why you want to be upfront about the rules you're going to hold your tenants to. If you aren't quite sure what those rules should be, we've got you covered. Keep watching to discover the house rules for renters every landlord should know. All right, our first rule is a little bit obvious, but unless you're running a charity, it's super important to make sure your tenants are paying rent on time. That means be clear when rent is due and whether you use grace periods or late fees. One thing to note here is that some states have mandatory minimum grace periods for rent that all landlords must use. So just make sure to check those rules in your state before establishing your grace period. Next up, make sure your tenants know what's expected of them in regard to property maintenance. Are they responsible for replacing light bulbs, keeping the unit clean, and taking care of the plants outside? Now, as tempting as free labor may be, you can't ask your tenants to do everything for you. Landlords are typically responsible for most property maintenance tasks, even if you want your tenants' help with some minor parts. Clarity matters here, because miscommunications can cause key maintenance tasks to get missed, and your property may sustain damage as a result. And speaking of property damage, that brings us to our next rule. Do you ever wish you could take out an insurance policy for bad tenants? How about one that you don't have to pay for? Nope, that's not a dream. That's sort of what renter's insurance is, and making it a requirement at your property could be a smart idea. Renter's insurance covers the financial costs of injuries and property damage that tenants cause. Setting a minimum policy amount will give you financial assistance in the event of a nightmare tenant, or even if a good tenant has an accident. Renter's insurance also protects the tenants and their belongings in case of any accidents that happen on your property, so requiring it can help you to minimize your liability and financial risk. We all love animals. I mean, how could you not? But that doesn't necessarily mean we want them living on our property. That's why your pet policy is the next rule you want to be clear about. In your case, you may decide that you don't want any pets on your property, or you could place restrictions based on breed and weight. You also have the option to charge extra on a monthly basis or ask for a pet security deposit. Whatever your pet policy is, make sure your tenants know that before them moving in. If you try to tell someone that they can't have their pet on your property after they've moved in, that's almost definitely going to lead to a negative review and who knows what else. As enjoyable as hosting an all-night karaoke party may be for your tenants, cops have better things to do than come to your property and break things up. That's why our next rule is super important to make sure your tenants know what they can and can't do regarding noise levels. Now, you can't expect your property to be as quiet as a church, especially on weekends and during the day, but you can set a hard cutoff time for loud noises like karaoke parties. Establishing quiet hours when noise must be minimal is an important part of ensuring all tenants feel comfortable on your property. And believe me, everyone will thank you for it. Next up, make sure you're clear about what will happen at the end of a tenant's lease and their options for renewing it. The common practice is for a landlord to provide the terms of renewal 30 to 60 days before the end of a lease. Now, your rules should state when you're going to send this notice and how long the tenants have to respond to it. This is another area where your state may have some legal requirements for you to follow, so be sure to check on these policies before finalizing your own. You also want to let your tenants know how they can and can't change the unit that they're renting from you. That polka dot paint job may be the most beautiful thing in the world for an artistic tenant, but it won't necessarily make it easy for you to rent out the unit after they move out. The same thing applies for things like flooring and appliance changes. Most landlords prevent tenants from making major changes, but if a tenant is going to paint or add new fixtures to a unit, just let them know that they need to return the unit back to its original condition before handing it over to you. That way you can keep your tenant happy, no strings attached. At least we hope so. Next up on our list of rules is parking arrangements. Everyone needs somewhere to put their car. This can create a sense of competition among tenants when parking is limited and may cause problems. To avoid these unwanted outcomes, ensure your tenants understand where they can park and what their rights are. Be as detailed and specific about this as possible. That way, your property managers don't have to put on their meter maid hat in addition to everything else that they do for you. It's also a good idea to be clear about how many residents can live in a unit and whether you're going to allow subletting. Many landlords decide to state how long visitors can stay with a resident to avoid any rule breaking. But whatever your policies are with regard to subletting and unit occupancy, just make sure your tenants know them upfront. Otherwise, your apartment could turn into one of those clown cars where a door opens up and the tenants never stop filing out. If your tenants break the law, that can put your entire rental property at risk. It's why you should definitely place some rules in your lease about the consequences of violating laws on your property. Now, it's technically illegal to jaywalk, but you don't have to evict a tenant if they cross the street improperly. But you do want to ensure that tenants know they may be evicted if they're caught doing things like using illegal drugs or running an illegal business. And finally, you want to let your tenants know at the beginning of their tenancy what will happen if they break one of the rules you've outlined in their lease. There are often legal requirements to consider here. For example, some states require landlords to give tenants an opportunity to fix a lease violation before evicting them. Just make sure you understand these and aren't in violation of any legal requirements as you outline the consequences of a lease violation. So there you have it. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be the cool, fun landlord, but you have to look after your real estate investment first. Including rules like these in your tenant's lease will allow you to take swift action when it's necessary and be a friend to your tenants when it's not. If you want help with all this, DoorLoop's property management software may be a good fit. It features an easy-to-use tenant portal that residents will be able to use to check rules just like this whenever they need. So we hope you found this video helpful, and don't forget to like and subscribe to see more videos just like this. We'll see you soon. Until next time.